you've got a book all about civility, and it's got the rules of civility, and it also, I believe, references George Washington's rules of civility and how you can apply that to your life. Can we just talk about that for a little while? Because I can't help but think that all of everything that we've talked about so far, has led up to this formation of your expertise, global expertise, expert in civility and protocol. And you wrote the book on it.
I did, and it was a labor of love. It took a long time to get it done, but George Washington wrote these 110 rules of civility when he was about 16 years old. I think he was probably translating them. I know he was translating them from a French etiquette book, sort of the noble's training manual, so to speak, how to be a noble. But it could have been just a writing exercise for him, but it seemed to permeate a philosophy of life for him over his lifetime. And so I took those rules and reorganized them into categories. Because they're funny things. Sometimes it's like, what is this really trying to get at, right? What are you trying to do? Is it just a rule of behavior? But
And also written from the context of how they spoke and wrote in,
yes,
1750 or whatever
yes.
he wrote it.
Thou shalt not stand so close to a man so as to bedew a man with one spittle is my personal favorite. And it sounds funny, but it's kind of handy right in the COVID days, as we don't
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to,
Don't speak moistly to people.
that's a very good way to put it. Yeah,
As my
exactly.
as the Prime Minister of Canada gets, whose first language is French, said in English, and has been made fun of ever since. Don't speak moistly.
That's a good, I love that. I hadn't heard it. So it's so I just sort of reanalyzed them and said, okay, what are they really about, right? So that particular one has a pragmatic, practical implication because it can help stop spread germs through societies, but it's also about respecting people's space. It's about respecting the other person, that, your own, the sort of integrity of the individual there. And so they all kind of boil down to about 4 or 5 things: trust, respect, honor, humility, duty, those kinds of courtesy. And so a lot of the rules that we have in society are courtesy based. And that's what most people think of as civility, is manners, right? The courtesy to somebody else, the manners change with time, they are sort of more fluid, and what is good manners is an evolutionary thing. So it used to be in the Western world, 3 feet apart is sort of the standard for our body space. Or you just grew, you don't even probably, a lot of people don't even really realize that. They just do it because that's sort of how you grow up. Now it's 6 feet, right? When COVID hit, all of a sudden 6 feet was the standard. And that was the courteous distance. Okay. So it's not inflexible, this sort of manners world, but manners are just one pathway. When they're kind of like the cars on a bridge, they change, they change with time, but they are the mechanism to get us from here to there and to connect between the two sides of a bridge or something that they're being held together. So that's about our societal fabric. So all of these aspects of things are really the most important, as far as I'm concerned, the most important aspects of civility: trust, respect, dignity, humility, courtesy, honor. And so I just went in a little bit deeper on each of those subjects and talked about it from George Washington's perspective, from his life, from my own personal life with some of these interesting people, and then sharing experiences of other people to grow the examples of that. So it's a pretty quick read, but I'm just about to finish, and I'm very excited about it, a workbook that there'll be multiple tiers of this, but a workbook that if somebody wanted to do it themselves, they can just get the workbook and do it themselves. But also for a seminar, 3 hours, 2 days, or call it, we're working on it for the MBA program as a workplace, civility in the workplace. And all the exercises are built on neurobiology. So it's not just my opinion about how we should get along. It's about pragmatic, practical things you can do to create a practice of civility. It takes work, and it's personal growth, emotional intelligence, learning communication skills, having hard conversations. It's all of those things wrapped up into one. And for me, that's why the topic of civility is so important. It's not just how do we be nice to each other. It's about how do we live together in society. And that's what civil worlds are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I talk to people about this all the time. That the words we use are just a small fraction of what we are actually communicating. Like our body language, the way we frame ourselves, the difference between a telephone call and a video, and how much more connected you are, the way that you pay attention and the way you show interest, space, humility, there's so much more to relationship and communication than the black and white facts of the world. You can be right, but be perceived in a way that is totally wrong. And I think I love your phrase, the practice of civility, because it says two things to me. One, no matter how good you are at relationships and protocol, you can always be practicing, learning, and adapting to get better because it isn't rigid. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that it says is that you can start wherever you are and just work on it from your point of view and not from anyone else's progress, so that you don't need to try to keep up with someone else who you perceive as a great relationship communicator builder, who has humility and trust and respect. You can start where you are and always be growing towards it. And so I love the concept and the philosophy of the practice of civility. I think it means that everyone listening can start where they are and do it and work on it and experience the benefits of it, from how it'll enhance your life, your relationships, the way and ultimately, I think as you get better at that, your success in life and your joy in life will be way better, because I believe you have another book or another book that's coming.
Yes.
About the joy journey. And
yes.
Tell me about that one, because I haven't had a chance to dive into that one yet, but just the title itself attracts me in.
So so my middle name is Joy, and about 10 years ago or so, I had just moved back to California. I was kind of in a funky place, and I just wasn't overwhelmingly happy. I wasn't unhappy. I was just in a funk, and I was in a beautiful place. I went to Greece for my friend's 50th birthday to celebrate her birthday. And I thought, why am I not happy? I mean, this is like, I'm in paradise, what more could I ask for? You got to get a grip, Shelby, because, you got to find your joy, and it really kind of went into the joy in the middle of everything, and middle of my name, middle of my life, middle of everything, and just stop and just embrace the positivity that's around you and the things that you can do, and you can't control everything, and just sort of have an understanding of that. So I just sort of embarked on what I call the joy journey. And it's a moving target. It's not a finite, it's not a destination. It's not like civility in the practice of it. It's not a answer A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3, and you're done. I mean, it's a journey. It's an ongoing life quest, and that you don't have to say, I will be happy when. Mm-hmm. That's to me, that's why I chose joy, and why the word joy resonates for me so much, because you can find joy in the smallest of things. Having this conversation, I'm doing it in a place that I love to be. The sunshine coming in through the window behind me brings me joy. It's about embracing those small moments as well as really celebrating the big ones. Mm-hmm. And marking all of those moments in one way or another. And all that does is it goes again to the chemistry in our brain. Mm-hmm. Is we can literally ignite joy in ourselves if we are aware of how to do it. And that's basically small things like expressing gratitude and paying attention to the beautiful things in life and the small things, and not always, getting bogged down with stuff that's not worth getting all that upset about. But it's a practice too, because the other day I looked at my assistant and I said, okay, I'm going to do something I never do. And I just screamed out loud how frustrated I was at all of the hoops I had to get to just to get into my bank accounts online with the authentication and and I was like, this is maddening. And so that was getting to me. Because I'm human. But I just took a moment to express it. I said, this is nothing personal. I am just going to vent for a moment, and then I'm going to get on, because I don't want to live in this ugly place that I'm in at the moment. I'm just angry and frustrated. And so now it's time to take a breath and go do something and appreciate the world. And it really does change things when you stop yourself from getting just sucked into something that is a black hole of despair. And we have plenty of things that people want to help push us over the edge in that. And I'm just not going there with that. I'm just not going to let them do it. I'm looking at the title of your podcast, The Amplifier, and saying, I want to amplify joy. I want joy to reverberate and civility to reverberate in this world. But the only way I can do that is by being the example. Gandhi said, be the change. The only way, I can't force it on you. I can just be an example of it and invite you into that world and amplify it that way. I can't do it by force.
That's right. Over the last 18 months or so, I've studied behavior and behavior design and behavior change and the neurological concept of flow. All of it has a basis in emotionally celebrating things to create a different mental state. So you're in California. A friend, a mentor, and a teacher of mine is Dr. B.J. Fogg from Stanford. And I don't know if you know or met B.J., but his public book on it's called Tiny Habits. And then I've done a lot of work with him in private workshops. And all of his science around creating change, positive change in your life, creating habits that are good for you, they all have an emotional element that you can sort of hack those behaviors by instilling something at the end, what he calls shine. But it's a celebration, it's a joyful moment after you completed a small thing. We've heard lots of sort of urban language around creating habits in 30 times in 30 days. But what BJ has found that you can hack behavior and create better behaviors for yourself and even in your business and as an entrepreneur, design better successful processes for your people by instilling celebration at the end of an action. Mm-hmm. And that's like when you talk about joy, instantly came to mind is the way that BJ talks about shine as something that you add into intentional behaviors to create a habit faster. And it definitely, I do it all the time when I'm trying to create new behavior change for myself, is I've found 3 or 4 things, a bodily movement. Like I normally just do a fist pump after I finish a more intense workout that I pushed myself on, even though I'm exhausted. And somehow that instills me, okay, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And very quickly it just becomes habit.
Yes.
And so there's definitely a ton of work on the state of flow. And Stephen Kotler wrote a great book called The Art of the Impossible, where he talked about flow recently. But it all has to do with joy and finding joy, not in big, monumentous achievements in life, but like in, finding joy because you cleaned your house, for an hour. And instead of being angry that it was a mess, find joy that you feel satisfaction that you did it. And so I think that that's a fantastic topic, and it really has a ton of science behind the emotional connection between satisfaction in little things.
Yes. Sure.
And is this book out? Because I think we're waiting for it, right? When are you publishing?
It's almost done. I put that aside because I was working on a couple of things at the same time. So I set that aside for a little bit, finished the civility book, got that out, and then launched a whole nother business in the meantime. So, and also I wanted to have, even though I believe intrinsically that joy comes from within and that no physical things don't make us happy kind of philosophy. I wanted to have a companion site when the book came out that had some things there that were sort of representative of joy. So products that say joy, I have coffee mugs and all that. I have some jewelry and things. And so that site actually got finished way before the book did.
Okay.
So that's the joyjourney.life. And it's just all sorts, it's mostly geared towards women, but if you want a Valentine's present, it's probably a good place to go. And it's got lots of jewelry and fun stuff and things that say inspirational, phrases that are around joy.
What's the name of that website again? Because I got to get some Valentine's
www.joyjourney.life, L-I-F-E.
Joyjourney.life. I love that.
So it's a happy site. I celebrate the makers. I want to celebrate women entrepreneurs or any entrepreneurs that do stuff, small business makers and things like that. So there's a lot of things in there that are personal friends of mine who have products, but also other small businesses. And I just try to bring it together into a little happy little place. things that I like. Basically, that's it.
Sure.
I don't put myself in the same category as Oprah, but it's my favorite things, basically.
And when is your book going to come out? Have you got a release date when you're going to publish it, and where will
Yeah,
people get it when you do?
I would say probably around summertime.
Summertime?
Yep.
And can you find it on Amazon or in local bookstores or
Yeah,
Amazon
it'll be on
Kindle or
Amazon.
something?
Yeah, it'll be posted there in the not too distant future for pre-sale, and we're gonna get it done. So I'm working on that. I've got a book coming out on my grandfather coming out in the next 2 weeks
Hmm.
called Undaunted. I didn't write it, but my siblings and my sisters and our cousins all came together we hired a writer who was a novel writer, and he took my grandfather's autobiography and wrote it into novel format. So it reads like an adventure novel, but
Okay.
it's all true. And it's a fascinating story about the first man to attempt a solo around the world. It's called Undaunted, and that'll be out on Amazon in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, and his, because I did some research on your grandfather this morning, his pilot's license was brought to the moon on Apollo 11, wasn't it?
Yes, so it's really symbolic. We have the pilot's license still. It's really symbolic of where he spans the aviation history, which was technically he was part of the golden age of aviation, but his pilot's license was signed by Orville Wright, because Orville was the head of the aviation designating society at that time. And then he gave it to Neil Armstrong, who he was friends with because of all because of his history. He was friends with all these people. He was sort of their mentor. They looked up to him. And so he gave it to Neil Armstrong who took it to the moon, and Buzz Aldrin signed it and Neil Armstrong signed it, Tranquility Base. And my grandfather has it signed. So there's all these sort of these people who never met each other. Orville Wright and Neil Armstrong are on the same document, along with my grandfather. And it just is, to me, is really
Bridges the entire span of flight to
totally.
getting to space.
From the first
That's
flight
incredible.
to the space age.
That's incredible.
And just the visionary aspect that my grandfather had, the entrepreneur that he was, the marketeer that he was, the guy who dreamed big dreams and put them into play is really inspirational for me. And we want to put it out there in the world to remind people that there were people in this country who really helped move the world forward in their own ways, and to celebrate that spirit.
That's incredible. That book's coming out next week.
Yep. Yeah,
Cool.
we're in the
Now,
final edit.
We had an hour and a half of our time booked, and we've burned through it. Do you have a few more minutes to talk
Sure.
about the School of Entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, because this whole journey was the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was, like, I'm an entrepreneur, and I know tons and hundreds of people who have gone to business school, who have got commerce degrees, who have got MBAs, and they are not entrepreneurs. They want to be cogs in the machine, and they want to be successful inside of corporate world, or and in those, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're wired that way, because you have to either know or discover that that's not you. I mean, for me, I spent 15 years of my life as an entrepreneur thinking that I was trying to climb the corporate ladder, realizing that I was on the wrong wall, and and then I switched to being an entrepreneur, and that's a different experience and a different life. But there's nowhere to go to be a professional entrepreneur, or at least that was my experience. So I found organizations and other entrepreneurial groups that I could participate in. But you've got the Global School of Entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So tell us about this, because this is really intriguing to me.
Well, about 8 months ago now, it's been a year and a half in the making, but we, 4 people came together. We were part of a task force looking into the ability to create an MBA program for entrepreneurs and get it accredited, et cetera. Kind of in conjunction with the Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO. We were doing some research for them, and we had it all kind of put together, and COVID hit, and the organization rightfully said we have to put that on hold because we've got other things to worry about. We got to take care of our entrepreneurs and make sure they're going to survive through this, and figure that out. And it's fine. But we said, we're ready to go. Do you mind if we take this and run with it? Because we think this could be a great opportunity. And they said, fine. So we, the 4 partners of co-founders stayed involved, and one of the co-founders and I are kind of operationally putting this in place. So last October, we had our first cohort begin. We have 8 to 10 to 11 entrepreneurs in a cohort with a professor, 1 year. They go through, we have distinguished guest lecturers who come in almost every class. It's via Zoom. We want to kind of bookend it so that we can onboard the cohort. Once COVID is behind us, we can have them meet as a cohort at the beginning and then at the end for graduation to present their final projects to each other and to have that celebratory moment together.
Mhm.
And in the meantime, we've helped create a bond between this one cohort. But as we grow as an organization, multiple cohorts, and we want to harness the alumni of all of that and connect them together to have resources and best practices. The point of the MBA, it's a fully accredited MBA. The point of the MBA for this entrepreneur, for an entrepreneur, is not necessarily to get a raise in there. It is not to get a raise and to get a promotion in their business. That's not the function of it. Whereas to your point, most MBA programs are built to build really strong middle managers in large companies. And those are big jobs and important jobs and necessary jobs. But the DNA of an entrepreneur doesn't really fit that. So also, the schedule of an entrepreneur doesn't fit that. We can't take, if you're in your job, if you're working in your business, you can't take 2 years out to go to school to learn theory, even case studies that are supposed to be based on real life, which I appreciate the methodology. It is not real life. Mm-hmm. And it is still theoretical in a sense. And so it's very helpful because it's like learning a story, and we remember stories better than a lot of things, and facts and figures and models of things. But we have the intention of creating a very pragmatic, practical curriculum that is usable now, that the entrepreneur can then use the curriculum to work on their business while they're working in it, and to be able to scale and learn methodologies of scale and have resources and access to one another, to learn from one another and to share those experiences and to work through, hey, we talked about last night, we had a class and we talked about operating systems. So entrepreneurial operating system and scaling up. Yeah. Are you an EOS guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
And scaling up.
Actually, I've written a book, my book called Coaching Your Team.
Oh, there you go.
It talks about coaching your team, the leadership, management, and accountability missing link. Because LMA is an EOS sort of methodology, but I wanted to write a book that was specifically on teaching entrepreneurs a framework for how to coach that's different than teaching and accountability and a coaching mindset. So I literally just had we had our EOS quarterly with my team on Monday.
Yeah, so we went in deep on that yesterday in our class, and that's not something you would learn in a typical MBA course.
No.
There are certain things for accreditation you got to check the boxes on. There's leadership, there's marketing, there's finance, there's some basic things so we definitely cover all of that, but we also get very practical and tactical so that there are tools there that we can discuss and work through. And so kind of the bottom line of what we talked about yesterday was, are you a visionary or an integrator from that perspective? And also then what's pragmatic about that and how does it work? And whether you choose EOS or scaling up or any other system is sort of choose a system.
Yep.
And invest in it. And focus on it. And if you choose a tool, another thing we may talk about eventually is things like CRMs or management tools, like, whether it's a Monday.com or a Asana or IO or all these lots of opportunities out there. Okay, so they're very similar. Do your due diligence, but pick one. And invest everybody in it and invest in the training and get everybody so you're all on the same page and moving in the same track and the same direction. And you have accountability, you have coaching, you have ways to communicate with your team, and to take that entrepreneurial mindset and mentality and focus that amazing energy into things that can be not just ideas and not just dreams, but into reality. So this is the point of our school. And I'm so proud of the work we've done already. We we have 2 programs. One's called Mastermind to MBA. So it is exactly what it seems like. It's a mastermind group. We are kind of a cohort, a forum of a tight group of people that are all entrepreneurs. We're all students together going through this together, but we also are on our own journeys. And so we share our experiences. And we get an MBA at the end of it, and we want those people to stay together and build that community for themselves. and we want to facilitate that. The other is a one-on-one program called MBA My Way. And there are entrepreneurs. I have a friend who's a celebrity who's kind of interested in it. And it may not be right to be in a group and where you're disclosing a lot of things. We want people to feel free to talk, openly about the pros and cons of things going on in their life and have that be confidential, or your schedule is just too crazy. So, they may do it with, he and his son may do it. And it's a great product for them because they could do it together. And we have a professor with them designing their course load together, but still doing all of the things you've got to do for the MBA, but then saying, okay, what particularly are you interested in really drilling down on? And what resources can we bring to the table for you to help you grow your business? And this is a, it's a more expensive program. It's a more customized program, bespoke, as they say, but it's a lovely way to MBA. It's just, and we have
Both of them sound fascinating to me. You know, when I was, when I went to university, the one thing that, it felt very solo for a lot of your work because a lot of your classmates, if you were going to go into business school or law school or wherever you wanted to go, people had their own focus and there wasn't necessarily a lot of collaboration. It was read the material, do the work, submit your assignments. And it wasn't until I joined mastermind groups with entrepreneurs in particular, because I've done lots of other business classes along the way. But what I really love about the entrepreneurial experience when you collaborate, and an MBA and a mastermind sounds intriguing, because when you first enter into that world, you think I got all these unique problems in my business and challenges, and I'm in the industrial business or I'm in the marketing business, and then you start to meet all these other entrepreneurs and they're like in everything from selling essential oils to building space shuttle. I mean, they're building rockets. I mean, and everything in between are in my groups. And we all have the same issues. We all have the same issues. They're, they may manifest themselves in different ways, but what's intriguing is you can take something that a company who owns 15, dentist offices and how they've figured out how to hire. And then if you're smart from a protocol standpoint, you learn how to adapt that to your business and, you can magnify and amplify your learning quickly. But there's something about, we all have the same issues with people and processes and data. And so having an operating system and then thinking about the tactics of how we can take great ideas from some other entrepreneur and figure out how to apply it to our business is so, it's unlike anything else that you can do because, when you're an entrepreneur, you can't go to your employees and say, the weight of the world is on me, help me figure it out. I mean, you certainly have a team, but they don't feel the same way about the business, the joys and the struggles with it. But when you're in a team or when you're in a group with another group of entrepreneurs, it feels like they're your tribe.
Yes, yes.
Right? And when you're learning and growing together, there's something almost like a championship team sort of feeling with that group of people that you're winning and succeeding together, and you get to celebrate each other in a unique way. And so I'm super excited about what you're doing there because I think it, and the fact, I mean, I'm doing a lot of that work, but I don't get an MBA, and I don't, some parts of it, I've always grew up in both worlds, so there's a piece of me intrigued about that. And there's a piece of me that says I don't need this, I don't need the letters after my name, but the, being able to celebrate a completion of something as opposed to, entrepreneurship tends to be just a never-ending story of a journey, right? And it's fun, but having a benchmark that says, "Look what I did," is really interesting.
Well,
and so this is really new, right?
It is very new. Entrepreneurs tend to like goals. We tend to like accomplishments, and so I kind of think it's like a bonus program. If you to join this mastermind to MBA program means you have this mastermind group, you have education and learning and access to experts, and then at the end of a year you have an MBA. I mean, wow, what's that's
that's a great way to put it. I think for most entrepreneurs, they're not looking for an MBA because they're, I remember this phrase many years ago. You know, I think it was Zig Ziglar said, "I got up in the morning and I decided if I give myself a raise or a demotion, because there's no, you know, it's not. You don't need an MBA as an entrepreneur to get the raise or to get the promotion, because you're looking in the mirror and you can decide. But you also get to decide when you can't write the check to yourself too. Um,
Yes.
but I do think the idea of a bonus and hitting a goal while you're accomplishing what really matters as well is a really great way to put that together.
One of our
So,
students has 2 MBAs already.
oh wow,
Yeah, he has 2 different MBAs from 2 different schools, and he wanted.
he's done the academic business school side, and so now he's got another approach to an MBA.
Yeah, yeah.
Very, very fascinating. So Shelby, this has been fantastic. I've loved this conversation. I hope you've gotten some value out of it too, because this was a lot of fun
I
for
love
me.
it. I love talking about this stuff.
How do people reach you? I mean, you've got a few different things going on. So what are the best ways for people to reach out and connect?
Well, if you need a good Valentine's present, joyjourney.life. If you want to think about an MBA, you could go to gse.mba. And if you want to, if you want to book on civility or something, you could go to shelbyscarborough.com. So any of those things gets back to the same place eventually, probably. So there's a lot of fun
Like
ways.
every entrepreneur, you've got a lot of fingers and a lot of things, but they all have a common theme. So that's wonderful.
They do. My pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Shelby, thank you so much.